Number 7, we're subtracting, so again we need a common denominator. Alright, we have 3 and we have x plus 5. Now since these do not have any factors in common, the common denominator is just going to be the product of the two. Alright, so the common denominator is 3 times x plus 5. First fraction, to get this denominator we have to multiply top and bottom by x plus 5. So here we're doing a FOIL multiplication, x plus 5 times x plus 1. All right, let's multiply that out. So we have x squared, I'm just doing it on top. Middle term, x times 1, x plus 5x. That would be a plus 6x plus 5. All right, here we have to multiply top and bottom by 3. Don't forget distributive law here. So we have 3 times 2x squared, that's 6x squared, minus 3 times 3x minus 9x. All right, let me just cross this out. Okay, so now we have to be careful with this subtraction. We have x squared plus 6x plus 5 minus, I'll put this in parentheses, minus this whole numerator. So that's minus 6x squared. And here we have minus minus, so that's plus 9x. So be careful. Make sure you get right here, make sure you get a plus right there. All right, we do have like terms, couple like terms. X squared minus 6x, that's minus x squared minus 6x squared, that's minus 5x squared. 6x plus 9x, that's plus 15x, plus 5. So that's the result. And number 8, again, we're subtracting. Notice that we have a common denominator here. So we don't have to find a common denominator. We already have one. So we just have to subtract the numerators. And what we have to be careful with is our signs. All right, so let's write down the first numerator, 3x squared minus 5x plus 2. And here we have to be careful. We're subtracting the entire 2x squared minus 3x minus 7. So we're going to open those parentheses. It's as if the numerator is in an implied set of parentheses. And we're multiplying through by that minus sign. So we have minus 2x squared minus minus 3x will be a plus 3x. And minus minus 7 will be a plus 7. All right, we have some like terms. 3x squared minus 2x squared, that's x squared. Minus 5x plus 3x, that's minus 2x. 2 plus 7 plus 9. In number 9, we're adding, and we have to get a common denominator. So what we're going to do is, in order to figure out what the common denominator is, we do have common factors. So we're going to factor whatever we can. That is, factor whichever denominator can be factored. All right, so the first denominator, x squared plus x, we have a common factor of x that can be pulled out. So factoring will help us find the common denominator, just like we did with ordinary fractions. We factored, and we'll use that method for finding a common denominator. Okay, so now that this first denominator is factored, let's compare the two. And basically we have to just throw in all the factors to the highest exponents that they appear. So we have x, factor x, appearing to exponent 2, so throw that in, the x squared. And then we have factor x plus 1, Alright, it only appears to exponent 1, so just throw that in. So that's the common denominator, x squared times x plus 1. Now we'll get our equivalent fractions. We have to multiply this denominator by x. So do that numerator and denominator. So here we have a 3x. And we have to multiply the second denominator by x plus 1. Alright, so in this numerator we have 2x multiplying through 2x plus 2. And now just add those numerators. 3x plus 2x is 5x. So we have 5x plus 2. And the denominator is x squared times x plus 1. In number 10, we're going to do the same sort of thing to get the common denominator. We'll factor the denominators first to help us find that common denominator. So we can pull out an x from here. We do that, we get x times x squared minus 1 Alright, well that's x times x plus 1, x minus 1. And here we have x squared minus 1, that's x plus 1, x minus 1. So we factored the denominators. Let's compare the two factored denominators. And we see that what's missing, when we see that we have factors of x, x plus 1, and x minus 1. Alright, so the common denominator is going to be all the factors. So that would be x times x plus 1, x minus 1. The first denominator is the common denominator. It contains all the factors to the highest exponents that they appear, which is only 1 in this case. Okay, so the first fraction isn't changing. The second fraction, we just are multiplying numerator and denominator by x. And we'll add those. 2 plus 3x over the denominator. Leave the denominator factored. I added another problem to our practice problem, something along the lines of problem 10, where we want to get a common denominator and then add these fractions. And we're going to first factor the denominators. So this first denominator has a common factor of x squared, so let's pull that out. The second one has a common denominator of x, so let's pull that out. In parentheses, we have a quadratic which factors further. This is x plus 1 times x plus 1, and I'm going to write that as x plus 1 squared. So let's look at these two denominators. And let's figure out the common denominator. They both have factor x, and appearing the highest exponent to which x appears is 2, so x squared will be part of the common denominator. And they both have factor x plus 1, and the highest exponent to which it appears is 2, so x plus 1 squared is also part of the common denominator. Alright, so that's our common denominator, x squared times x plus 1 squared. Let's change this fraction to a fraction with this denominator. We'll have to multiply numerator and denominator by x plus 1. So this numerator is 2 times x plus 1, that's 2x plus 2. Let's change this fraction to a fraction with this denominator. We'll have to multiply numerator and denominator by x. So here we have 3x. All right, now we're ready to combine these. 2x plus 2 plus 3x, that's 5x plus 2, over x squared times x plus 1 squared. In number 11, we have a mixed quotient, that is, a quotient that has fractions within fractions. So what we want to do is we want to get rid of the fraction within the fraction, that is 7 over 5x and 3 over x squared. I think I'm just going to rewrite this. So what we want to do is we want to multiply top and bottom by a factor that will cancel these two denominators. So we need something that 5x divides into and x squared divides into. Well, that would be the common denominator of these two. So the common denominator would have a coefficient of 5 and x to the power x squared to the higher power. So we're going to multiply top and bottom by 5x squared. Let's write it as 5x squared over 1. And as a first step, we just use the distributive law and multiply through. So, and we do canceling in the next step. So 7 over 5x times 5x squared over 1. Okay, we're multiplying this times this. And now don't forget, this times this, minus 10 times 5 times x squared. 2 times 5x squared, that's 10x squared. All right, now in the denominator, first distribute 3 over x squared times 5x squared over 1 minus 25x squared. Okay, now we're ready to do our canceling. All right, we cancel these 5's, and x divides into x squared, and we're left with x. All right, now here we're just going to cancel the x squared. All right, let's just carefully see what we have left in the numerator. Here we have a 7x minus 10x squared. And in this denominator, we have 15 minus 25x squared. And that's simplified. Okay, number 12, we have another mixed quotient. Let me just rewrite it. So let's look at all these denominators. AB, A, B, AB squared. Okay, what's the common denominator? Well, it has to contain a to the highest power, that would be a to the 1, and b to the highest power that it appears, that would be b squared. So ab squared, that's the common denominator, and we're going to multiply numerator and denominator by ab squared over 1. First distribute. Okay, first this times this. Just write it out. Multiply through. Again, first just write it out, and then in the second step we cancel. Okay, into the denominator, 4 over b times ab squared over 1 minus the second fraction, 5 over ab squared times ab squared over 1. Now we're ready to cancel first the a's, and then b goes into b squared we're left with b. Okay, now the a's. Here we cancel 1b, b goes into b squared, we're left with b. Okay, now the a's, and cancel b squared as well. Okay, now just carefully see what's left here. 2b in this numerator minus 3b squared. And here we have 4ab minus 5. So that's the simplified fraction.